Freedom Over Fortune. The Mindset Shift That Leads to Wealth. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. Society glorifies money as the ultimate measure of success. We are told that financial freedom comes from earning more, saving aggressively, and one day, if we work hard enough, retiring comfortably. Yet, time and again, we see people with high incomes, luxury homes, and impressive net worths who feel anything but free. Instead of enjoying the lives they've built, they are consumed by long hours, endless obligations, and the constant pressure to maintain their status. If money alone guaranteed happiness, wouldn't every millionaire be living their dream life? The truth is, many of them feel just as trapped as those struggling paycheck to paycheck. The problem isn't a lack of income, it's a lack of freedom. This book isn't about how to make millions. It's about something far more valuable: designing a life where money serves you, not the other way around. There is a fundamental shift that separates those who are truly wealthy from those who are merely rich. It has nothing to do with how much is in their bank account, and everything to do with how much control they have over their time. The wealthiest people aren't the ones with the highest salaries or the biggest investment portfolios. They are the ones who wake up every day knowing they can choose how they spend their time, who they spend it with, and what they focus on. This book will challenge the way you think about wealth. It will show you why chasing fortune often leads to frustration, while prioritizing freedom leads to true success. You'll learn how to escape the income trap, avoid lifestyle inflation, and build financial security without sacrificing your happiness. Most importantly, you'll discover how to shift from simply making money to creating a life designed around autonomy, fulfillment, and lasting freedom. The world doesn't need more people chasing dollars, it needs more people designing lives they love. If you've ever felt like there must be more to success than just working harder and earning more, you're right. This book will show you a different path, a path where money is no longer the goal, but the tool that unlocks the life you truly want. Chapter 1. The Cost of Chasing Fortune. The pursuit of wealth is often a lifelong ambition. Society glorifies financial success, painting images of luxury cars, sprawling mansions, and exclusive vacations. The message is clear. The more money you have, the better your life will be. Yet, behind the scenes, many high earners find themselves stuck in a relentless cycle of stress, debt, and unfulfilled aspirations. They are trapped, not by a lack of resources, but by a flawed understanding of what wealth truly means. Consider the case of James, a corporate executive earning a 7-figure salary. On paper, he had it all: an enviable job, an expensive home, and the ability to buy anything he desired. But beneath the surface, his life was dictated by never-ending emails, late-night meetings, and the constant pressure to maintain his status. He barely saw his family, his health deteriorated, and he lived in a state of chronic exhaustion. Every year he earned more, but his freedom shrank. The more he made, the more he spent, fueling a cycle that felt impossible to escape. This is the paradox of traditional wealth building. We assume that earning more will eventually grant us the freedom we crave. But instead of buying autonomy, most people increase their commitments. A higher income often leads to higher expenses, greater responsibilities, and less time to enjoy life. The pursuit of more becomes an addiction, leaving little room for true fulfillment. Many believe that once they reach a certain financial milestone, they will finally slow down and enjoy life. But that moment rarely arrives. A person earning 6 figures strives for 7. A millionaire aims for 10. The finish line keeps moving because the belief system driving the chase never changes. Instead of asking, how much is enough, people ask, what's next? They confuse financial growth with life satisfaction, never realizing that the real currency of wealth is not money, it's time, autonomy, and choice. Contrast James's story with someone like Alex, a digital entrepreneur, earning significantly less but living life on his terms. Instead of chasing promotions, he built a business that allowed him to work remotely. He prioritized flexible hours over an inflated salary, choosing to design his lifestyle around his passions, rather than societal expectations. Alex travels frequently, spends quality time with family, and works only when necessary. Though his bank account isn't as large as James's, his life is rich in ways that truly matter. The fundamental difference between James and Alex isn't intelligence, luck, or even skill, it's perspective. James operates under the assumption that wealth is about accumulation. Alex understands that wealth is about freedom. This single shift in thinking determines whether someone controls their life or becomes a slave to their own success. For years, financial experts have preached the importance of climbing the income ladder. The idea is simple: work hard, earn more, invest wisely, and eventually retire with enough savings to enjoy life. But this model is flawed. It postpones happiness to an uncertain future. It forces people to sacrifice decades of their best years in exchange for a retirement that may never arrive. What if the real goal wasn't to accumulate wealth for later but to build a lifestyle that allows you to live well now? This shift requires a radical reevaluation of what wealth means. If money alone guaranteed happiness, lottery winners wouldn't go bankrupt and millionaires wouldn't feel trapped. The truth is, money without freedom is just another form of imprisonment. If the cost of earning more is losing control over your time, is it truly worth it? The people who live the richest lives aren't necessarily those with the highest incomes. They are the ones who wake up each day knowing they have the power to decide how they spend their time. They are the ones who structure their lives around what matters most to them, rather than what impresses others. They are the ones who recognize that real wealth isn't about having more, it's about needing less. The challenge isn't to earn as much as possible. The challenge is to create a life where money is a tool, not the goal. The first step is simple: define what wealth means to you beyond numbers. If financial success doesn't grant freedom, then what's the point of chasing it? Chapter 2. What real wealth looks like. Most people assume that wealth is about numbers. They measure success in salaries, investments, and net worth. The higher the figure, the more successful a person appears. Yet, time and again, we see high earners who are miserable, stressed, and trapped in lifestyles they can't escape. If money alone defined wealth, wouldn't they all be happy? The problem isn't income. It's the definition of wealth itself. Imagine two individuals, Mark and Sarah. Mark is a senior executive earning $1 million a year. He works 12-hour days, takes calls on weekends, and has little time for anything outside his career. He owns luxury cars, multiple properties, and a lifestyle that demands he keep earning at the same pace. Quitting isn't an option. Slowing down isn't an option. His wealth is impressive, but his life is rigid, stressful, and dictated by his obligations. Sarah, on the other hand, earns a fraction of what Mark does. She built a small business that allows her to work part-time. She spends her afternoons hiking, reading, and being with family. She has no debt, lives in a home she owns outright, and doesn't feel pressured to constantly earn more. She may not have millions in the bank, but she wakes up every day with complete control over how she spends her time. If wealth is about freedom, who is truly wealthier? Most people are taught that wealth comes from accumulating as much as possible. They aim for a bigger paycheck, a larger house, or a more impressive portfolio. But real wealth isn't measured in assets, it's measured in autonomy. It's not about what you own, it's about how much of your life is under your control. Many people make the mistake of thinking that financial security comes from earning more, but income alone doesn't create freedom. True financial security comes from needing less. When you lower your financial obligations, you expand your choices. When your life doesn't require a massive paycheck, you gain flexibility. The fewer things you depend on, the more control you have. This is why so many high-income earners feel stuck. Their expenses rise with their income, making it impossible to slow down. The more they make, the more they need. Lifestyle inflation keeps them on an endless treadmill, where stopping feels like failure. Meanwhile, those who prioritize freedom structure their finances differently. They focus on reducing dependence rather than maximizing earnings. They avoid debt, keep expenses low, and invest in assets that generate income without requiring their constant effort. The key difference between those who are rich in numbers and those who are rich in life is how they use money. Some people see it as a means to accumulate more. Others see it as a tool to buy back their time. The ones who understand this second approach design their lives around it. They prioritize financial decisions that create flexibility, rather than just wealth on paper. The idea that success is defined by constant growth is deeply ingrained in society. But when does it end? If every milestone leads to another, when do you finally feel wealthy? The answer is never, unless you redefine the goal. If wealth is always just a number, it will always feel out of reach. But if wealth is measured in time, choices, and autonomy, you can achieve it at any stage of life. This shift in thinking is the foundation of real wealth. It requires questioning what you've been taught about success. It requires rejecting the idea that you must constantly push for more. It requires asking yourself, what do I actually want my life to look like? The wealthiest people aren't the ones with the biggest bank accounts. They're the ones who wake up every day knowing they own their time. If your goal is freedom, your financial decisions must reflect that. Instead of asking how to earn more, ask how to need less. Instead of aiming for status, aim for control over your schedule. Instead of chasing numbers, design a life that allows you to enjoy today, not just someday in the future. Wealth isn't about how much you have. It's about how much of your life is truly yours. Chapter 3. The Freedom versus Fortune Mindset. Two people can have the same amount of money but live completely different lives. One is trapped in an endless cycle of work, stress, and obligations. The other has full control over their time, energy, and decisions. The difference isn't in their income, it's in their mindset. How you think about wealth determines whether you truly own your life, or whether your life is owned by the pursuit of more. Most people operate with a fortune-first mindset. They believe that financial success comes from working hard, earning as much as possible, and constantly increasing their income. Their focus is on accumulation, bigger salaries, larger investments, and higher net worth. They assume that once they reach a certain number, they will finally have freedom. But that moment never arrives. Every time they get close, their expenses rise, their responsibilities increase, and their goals shift further. The pursuit of wealth becomes an endless game where the finish line keeps moving. A freedom-first mindset, on the other hand, begins with the end goal in mind. Instead of asking, how can I make more money? It asks, how can I build a life where I control my time? The focus isn't on accumulation, it's on autonomy. A person with a freedom mindset doesn't chase promotions, salaries, or financial milestones for their own sake. They prioritize flexibility, low expenses, and income sources that don't require constant effort. They measure success by how much of their life is under their control, not by the size of their paycheck. The biggest trap of the fortune-first mindset is that it ties success to work. The more money you want, the harder you have to work. But this creates a cycle where your life revolves around earning, not living. Even high-income earners often feel stuck because their lifestyle demands constant effort. They spend decades building wealth, only to realize they have no time left to enjoy it. In contrast, the freedom-first mindset recognizes that wealth is a tool, not a goal. Instead of working harder to earn more, it focuses on designing a life where work is optional. The traditional path to wealth is based on delayed gratification. Society tells you to grind through long hours, save aggressively, and one day, maybe at retirement, you'll have enough to finally enjoy life. But what if you never make it to that stage? What if you spend your best years sacrificing for a future that never arrives? A freedom-first mindset doesn't wait for retirement to start living. It designs a life that is enjoyable now. Instead of following a linear path of work, save, retire, it creates a balance where freedom exists at every stage. The difference between these two mindsets can be seen in the choices people make every day. Someone with a fortune-first mindset will take a high-paying job, even if it means giving up control over their schedule. They will buy a bigger house, finance luxury cars, and increase their expenses as their income rises. They will seek promotions and business growth without questioning whether those things align with the life they want. Someone with a freedom-first mindset will do the opposite. They will prioritize flexibility over salary. They will keep expenses low to avoid financial stress. They will focus on building income streams that allow them to step away from work without losing financial security. Many people believe that financial success automatically leads to freedom. But the truth is, most wealthy individuals are still trapped. They have money, but no time. They have assets, but no flexibility. They are still required to show up, perform, and maintain their lifestyle through constant effort. The shift from fortune to freedom requires breaking this cycle. It requires recognizing that real wealth isn't about accumulation, it's about control. To make this shift, start by defining your ideal life. Forget about income goals, investment targets, and financial milestones for a moment. Instead, ask yourself, what does a perfect day look like? How do you want to spend your time? Who do you want to be with? Where do you want to live? When you focus on these questions, you start to see that wealth isn't about numbers, it's about choices. The wealthiest people aren't necessarily the ones with the highest income. They are the ones who wake up every morning knowing they are in charge of their lives. They have the freedom to do what they want, when they want, with whom they want. This is the difference between chasing fortune and prioritizing freedom. The first keeps you running in circles. The second gives you the power to finally live. Chapter 4. Escaping the Income Trap. Most people believe that earning a high income is the key to financial freedom. They assume that if they can just make more money, their problems will disappear. But income alone doesn't create freedom. In many cases, it creates dependence. The more someone earns, the more they spend. The higher their paycheck, the harder it becomes to walk away. Instead of gaining choices, they lose them. Consider John, a lawyer earning $500,000 per year. He lives in an upscale neighborhood, drives a luxury car, and sends his kids to private school. His lifestyle is impressive, but it comes at a cost. He works long hours, misses family events, and carries a mortgage that keeps him tied to his job. If he stopped working tomorrow, his entire financial structure would collapse. Despite his wealth, he is financially fragile. His income is high, but his freedom is low. Now, compare John to Lisa, a freelance writer earning $80,000 per year. She works on her own schedule, lives in a modest home, and keeps her expenses low. She doesn't drive a luxury car, but she also doesn't have any debt. Because she needs less, she has more control over her life. If she wanted to take a month off, she could. If she decided to switch careers, she wouldn't be trapped. Unlike John, her income isn't the thing that defines her financial security, her flexibility is. The income trap happens when people structure their lives in a way that requires them to keep earning at the same level indefinitely. Their lifestyle rises with their income, making it impossible to step away. This is why many high earners feel stuck. They assume they have financial security, but in reality they are just one lost job, one economic downturn, or one unexpected event away from financial stress. The key to escaping this trap is understanding the difference between income and independence. A person making $50,000 per year with low expenses and flexible work has more freedom than someone making $500,000 with a demanding job and a high cost of living. The goal isn't just to increase income, it's to build a system where money works for you, rather than the other way around. One way to do this is by creating multiple income streams. Most people rely on a single paycheck, meaning they are completely dependent on one source of money. If that income disappears, they have nothing to fall back on. Financially free people, on the other hand, diversify. They develop multiple streams of income that allow them to step away from work without losing financial security. These might include rental properties, online businesses, dividends, or automated income from investments. The more income sources a person has, the less dependent they are on any single one. Another way to escape the income trap is by avoiding lifestyle inflation. Many people assume that as their income rises, their spending should rise with it. They buy a bigger house, upgrade their car, and take on financial commitments that lock them into their current lifestyle. But true wealth isn't about having more, it's about needing less. The lower your expenses, the more control you have over your financial future. This is why many wealthy individuals still feel trapped. They have the money to live lavishly, but they don't have the ability to walk away. They are stuck in a cycle of earning and spending that keeps them tethered to their work. The solution is simple. Instead of asking how to make more money, ask how to need less. Instead of structuring life around maximum income, structure it around maximum freedom. Real financial security doesn't come from a high paycheck. It comes from having options. It comes from the ability to take time off, switch careers, or step away from work without worrying about money. The people who master this mindset don't chase income for its own sake. They build a life where they can afford to prioritize what matters most. Escaping the income trap isn't about giving up ambition. It's about shifting focus. Instead of working harder just to earn more, work smarter to create a system where income supports freedom. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to be the highest earner. The goal is to be the most free. Chapter 5. Lifestyle Inflation, the Silent Thief of Freedom. Earning more money should make life easier, yet for many people, it only makes life more expensive. As income rises, so do expenses. A bigger paycheck leads to a bigger house, a nicer car, and a more expensive lifestyle. Instead of feeling wealthier, they feel just as financially pressured as before. This is lifestyle inflation, the silent force that keeps even high earners stuck in a cycle of work and spending. Consider Emily, a marketing executive who started her career earning $50,000 per year. She lived in a modest apartment, drove a used car, and spent carefully. Over the years, her income grew to $200,000. But instead of gaining more financial security, she upgraded every part of her life. She moved into a larger home, leased a luxury car, and started dining at high-end restaurants. Her expenses rose to match her income, leaving her in the same financial position. Despite earning 4 times her starting salary, she still lived paycheck to paycheck. Lifestyle inflation happens gradually. At first, small upgrades feel harmless: a nicer phone, a slightly more expensive apartment, a few extra vacations. But over time, these choices add up. What was once a luxury becomes an expectation. The problem isn't just the money spent, it's the commitment to a lifestyle that demands constant income. The more someone inflates their lifestyle, the harder it becomes to step back, change careers, or pursue freedom. Many people justify lifestyle inflation by telling themselves they deserve it. After years of hard work, they feel entitled to the comforts and status that come with success. But the real question isn't whether they can afford it, it's whether it makes them freer. If an upgraded lifestyle increases stress, creates financial pressure, or forces them to keep working at the same intensity, it isn't true wealth. It's a financial trap disguised as success. The key to avoiding lifestyle inflation is understanding the difference between spending for happiness and spending for status. Happiness spending enhances life in meaningful ways, experiences, relationships, and personal fulfillment. Status spending is about keeping up with appearances, bigger houses, designer brands, and luxury items that provide temporary satisfaction, but no real long-term joy. People who prioritize freedom learn to spend intentionally. They focus on what adds value to their life, not just what looks impressive to others. One way to combat lifestyle inflation is by setting a financial baseline. Instead of increasing expenses every time income rises, maintain a comfortable but modest lifestyle. This doesn't mean living frugally forever, it means being conscious of spending habits. The best strategy is to increase investments, savings, and financial independence instead of inflating lifestyle costs. Every dollar saved is a step closer to freedom. Every unnecessary expense is a step further from it. Another strategy is to define what enough looks like. Most people never do this, which is why they keep chasing more. They assume that once they hit a certain number, they will finally feel secure. But because there is no defined goal, they keep upgrading, earning, and spending indefinitely. The secret to financial freedom isn't limitless income, it's knowing how much is truly enough. Once that number is clear, everything beyond it becomes optional. The people who escape the cycle of lifestyle inflation are the ones who resist the urge to spend mindlessly. They recognize that every purchase is a trade-off, not just in money, but in time and flexibility. They understand that true wealth isn't about looking rich. It's about having the power to decide how to live. They don't let higher incomes dictate their lifestyle. They let their values dictate their spending. At its core, lifestyle inflation is a mindset problem. It convinces people that success means always upgrading, always spending, and always earning more. But real success is having the option to walk away. The goal isn't just to make more money, it's to ensure that money increases freedom, not obligations. Because the richest people aren't those with the most expensive lifestyles. They are the ones who have the most control over their lives. Chapter 6. The 80-20 Rule of Wealth Time. Most people believe that success comes from working harder. They assume that putting in more hours, taking on more projects, and constantly hustling is the path to financial security. But effort alone doesn't create freedom. The real key to wealth is knowing which actions generate the biggest results. This is where the 80-20 rule comes in. The 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle, states that 80% of results come from 20% of actions. In almost every area of life, a small portion of efforts lead to the biggest outcomes. A few key clients generate most of a company's revenue. A handful of habits determine most of a person's productivity. A small number of investments drive the majority of financial growth. Recognizing these patterns is what separates those who struggle from those who thrive. Consider Michael, a business consultant who spent years working 60-hour weeks. He believed that success required grinding nonstop, so he took on every client and filled his schedule with meetings. Despite his hard work, his income remained stagnant. Eventually, he analyzed his workload and discovered that 80% of his revenue came from just 20% of his clients. The rest were draining his time while adding little financial value. By cutting low-value clients and focusing only on his top earners, he doubled his income while reducing his workload. He wasn't working harder, he was working smarter. The same principle applies to wealth building. Many people assume that financial success comes from constant effort, but most wealth is created through a small number of high-impact decisions. The right career move, a well-placed investment, or a simple shift in spending habits can have a greater effect than years of grinding. The challenge is identifying the 20% of actions that create the biggest financial freedom. One way to apply the 80/20 rule is to analyze income sources. Instead of spreading time across countless projects, focus on the ones that produce the highest returns with the least effort. This might mean shifting from active income, which requires constant work, to passive income, which generates money with minimal input. Rental properties, digital products, and investments all operate under the 80/20 principle. Small upfront effort can create long-term results. Another way to use the rule is with time management. Many people fill their days with busy work, believing that being constantly occupied equals productivity. But true productivity comes from eliminating unnecessary tasks and focusing only on what moves the needle. Cutting meetings, delegating low-value tasks, and setting clear priorities can free up time for more meaningful work. The same applies to spending. Many people try to save money by cutting out small expenses like coffee or dining out, but the biggest financial gains often come from just a few key choices. Downsizing a home, negotiating a higher salary, or automating investments has a far greater impact than skipping a latte. Focusing on the biggest financial wins makes it easier to build wealth without unnecessary sacrifice. The real danger of ignoring the 80/20 rule is wasting time on things that don't matter. Many people spend their lives chasing small wins instead of focusing on the few actions that drive real freedom. They grind endlessly, believing that effort equals success, while those who understand leverage are able to work less and achieve more. Applying this principle requires a shift in mindset. Instead of asking, "How can I do more?" ask, "What can I eliminate?" Instead of focusing on quantity, focus on quality. Instead of trying to be busy, aim to be effective. True wealth isn't about working harder, it's about knowing which efforts actually matter. The people who master this don't just earn more, they gain back their time, energy, and freedom. Chapter 7. Prioritizing work that aligns with your values. Most people build their lives around work. They structure their schedules, priorities, and even their identities based on their careers. But what if the goal wasn't just to work harder or earn more? What if the goal was to align work with what truly matters? The difference between those who feel trapped and those who feel fulfilled isn't how much they earn, it's whether their work supports their values. Consider David, a high-powered attorney who spent years climbing the corporate ladder. On paper, he was successful, his salary was impressive, his title carried prestige, and his peers respected him. Yet every morning, he dreaded going to the office. His work consumed his time, drained his energy, and left him feeling disconnected from the things he cared about most. He told himself that one day he would slow down and focus on what truly mattered, but that day never seemed to come. Then there's Maria, a graphic designer who built her career around flexibility. She didn't chase the highest-paying jobs or seek out the most prestigious clients. Instead, she focused on projects that excited her and allowed her to work on her own terms. She earned less than David, but she had something he didn't: control. She had time for her passions, energy for her relationships, and the freedom to structure her life in a way that felt meaningful. The biggest mistake people make is assuming that financial success will eventually give them the ability to prioritize their values. But if work is misaligned from the start, it rarely leads to fulfillment. The real key is designing work that supports the life you want, not the other way around. The first step is identifying what truly matters. Most people never take the time to define their core values, so they end up chasing goals that don't bring them happiness. They assume that success is about status, titles, or income, but they never stop to ask themselves if those things align with what they actually want. Without clarity, it's easy to get caught in a cycle of working harder for rewards that don't feel meaningful. Once values are clear, The next step is aligning work with those priorities. This doesn't necessarily mean quitting a job or starting a business, it means making conscious decisions about how work fits into life. It might mean negotiating for more flexible hours, shifting to a role that offers greater autonomy, or focusing on projects that feel purposeful. It's about ensuring that work serves personal values rather than overshadowing them. One of the biggest fears people have is that aligning work with values will mean earning less. But in many cases, the opposite happens. When people enjoy what they do, they perform better. When they have control over their time, they avoid burnout. When their work aligns with their interests, they naturally become more skilled. Long-term success isn't just about making money, it's about sustaining energy, motivation, and fulfillment. A key strategy for prioritizing meaningful work is eliminating unnecessary obligations. Many people fill their schedules with commitments that don't add real value. They say yes to meetings, projects, and responsibilities that drain their time, but don't move them closer to their ideal life. Learning to say no is just as important as learning to say yes. Every commitment should be evaluated through the lens of whether it aligns with personal goals. Ultimately, work should be a tool for building a better life, not a burden that dictates how life is lived. The people who find the greatest freedom aren't necessarily those who retire early or make millions. They are the ones who design work around their values from the start. They don't wait until someday to enjoy life. They structure their careers in a way that allows them to live fully now. The real definition of success isn't just financial, it's the ability to wake up every day knowing that what you do supports the life you truly want. Chapter 8. The Business of Freedom. Many people start businesses to gain independence, but too often, they end up feeling more trapped than they did in a traditional job. They replace a boss with clients, a salary with inconsistent revenue, and structured hours with an always-on mentality. Instead of working for someone else, they work for their business. True entrepreneurial freedom doesn't come from owning a business, it comes from owning a system that runs without constant effort. Consider Jake, a restaurant owner who dreamed of being his own boss. He invested everything into his business, believing it would give him control over his time. Instead, he found himself working long hours, dealing with employees, and handling endless problems. Vacations were impossible, and if he stepped away, the business suffered. He had built a job, not a system. His business needed him to function, which meant he had no real freedom. Now take Anna, an entrepreneur who built an online course business. She spent time up front creating content and automating marketing. Once her system was in place, sales happened without her direct involvement. She could take a month off, and her income wouldn't stop. Unlike Jake, she built something that worked for her, not the other way around. The difference between these two approaches is whether a business is designed for scale and autonomy. Many entrepreneurs make the mistake of building businesses that require their constant attention. They take on too many responsibilities, make themselves indispensable, and struggle to step back. The key to creating a freedom-first business is designing it to operate independently. One way to do this is through automation. Any task that can be repeated can often be automated, whether through software, marketing systems, or operational processes. Entrepreneurs who use automation remove themselves from daily tasks, allowing their businesses to function without their direct involvement. Another strategy is delegation. Many business owners hold on to every task, fearing that no one else can do it as well as they can. But trying to do everything alone leads to burnout and limits growth. Successful entrepreneurs delegate tasks that don't require their unique expertise. They focus only on high-value activities while building a team or outsourcing the rest. Product selection also matters. Some businesses naturally scale better than others. A service business that requires personal time and effort can be difficult to step away from, while a product-based or digital business can operate with minimal input. The most scalable models are those that generate revenue without requiring direct time for every sale. A common mistake is equating busyness with success. Many business owners believe that working harder means they are achieving more. But real success isn't about hours worked, it's about results generated. The best businesses aren't the ones that demand the most time. They are the ones that create the most value with the least ongoing effort. Building a freedom-first business starts with a simple question: can this business run without me? If the answer is no, then it's just a job disguised as entrepreneurship. The goal isn't just to be self-employed. The goal is to create a system that supports financial and personal freedom. Too many entrepreneurs trade one type of stress for another. They leave a job seeking independence but end up more overworked than before. The ones who truly achieve freedom build businesses that don't rely on them daily. They focus on automation, delegation, and scalable income. They don't just work for money, they create systems where money works for them. The purpose of owning a business isn't just to earn a living, it's to build a life where time is under your control. The real reward of entrepreneurship isn't just financial success. It's the ability to step away, knowing your business will keep running, giving you the freedom to live life on your own terms. Chapter 9. Investing in freedom, not just returns. Most people invest with one goal in mind: maximizing returns. They chase high-yield stocks, real estate, and business opportunities, believing that the more they earn, the better their financial future will be. But wealth without freedom is just another kind of trap. True financial independence isn't about making the most money, it's about structuring investments in a way that supports the life you want. Consider Paul, an investor who built a strong portfolio of high-return assets. On paper, he was financially successful, but his investments required constant attention. He spent hours tracking the stock market, managing real estate properties, and making complex financial decisions. Even though he had money, he was tied to his investments. Every gain came with stress, uncertainty, and time-consuming maintenance. Then there's Laura, who approached investing differently. Instead of chasing the highest returns, she focused on building income streams that required little effort. She bought rental properties with property management in place. She invested in index funds instead of individual stocks. She built a portfolio that generated passive income, allowing her to step away from constant management. While Paul was busy watching the markets, Laura was enjoying her life. The difference between these two approaches is simple: Paul prioritized returns, while Laura prioritized freedom. Many people assume that investing is just about accumulating as much wealth as possible. But true financial security comes from owning assets that generate income without demanding time, stress, or constant attention. One of the most effective ways to build freedom-first investments is through cash-flowing assets. Most people invest for long-term appreciation, hoping their net worth will increase over time. But net worth alone doesn't create freedom. What matters is having income streams that support daily expenses without requiring active work. Rental income, dividend-paying stocks, and automated business income all fall into this category. They generate returns without requiring constant oversight. Another key strategy is simplification. Many investors overcomplicate their portfolios with complex strategies, high-maintenance assets, and excessive diversification. While diversification is important, spreading investments too thin can create unnecessary work. The most successful freedom-first investors focus on a few high-quality assets that require minimal management. The goal isn't just to make money, it's to reduce financial stress and decision fatigue. A major mistake people make is assuming they need millions to retire. They believe financial freedom is only possible once they hit a specific number. But in reality, freedom comes from cash flow, not just accumulated wealth. If someone has $5 million but no passive income, they still need to sell assets or actively manage investments to survive. But if someone has $5,000 in monthly passive income with low expenses, they can live comfortably without ever touching their principal. Investing for freedom also requires resisting unnecessary risk. Many people take aggressive financial risks because they feel pressured to grow their wealth as fast as possible. But the faster the gain, the higher the risk. The wealthiest investors prioritize long-term stability over short-term wins. They don't gamble on volatile assets. They focus on reliable, predictable income that gives them control over their financial future. The ultimate goal of investing isn't just to grow money, it's to create a life where money is no longer a source of stress. The people who achieve true financial independence don't just chase returns. They structure their investments to give them time, flexibility, and peace of mind. They focus on systems that generate income automatically. They avoid unnecessary complexity and risk. They understand that real wealth isn't measured in net worth. It's measured in how much of life is truly under their control. At the end of the day, financial freedom isn't about having the most money, it's about having the most choices. Smart investing isn't just about building wealth, It's about ensuring that wealth works for you, so you never have to work for it again. Chapter 10. The Minimalist Money Blueprint. Most people assume that financial freedom requires a massive income or a complex investment strategy. They believe they need to work harder, earn more, and build a fortune before they can live life on their terms. But in reality, the fastest path to freedom isn't through earning more, it's through needing less. The less money you require to sustain your lifestyle, the easier it becomes to break free from financial dependence. Take Daniel, a high-earning executive who made over $300,000 a year. On the surface, he appeared wealthy. He owned a luxury home, drove an expensive car, and traveled frequently. But his financial life was anything but free. His mortgage, car payments, and lifestyle choices kept him locked into a high-income job. Despite his wealth, he had no flexibility. If he stopped working, his financial obligations would overwhelm him. Now compare him to Lisa, a freelance writer who earned only $60,000 a year. Unlike Daniel, she lived well below her means. She rented a small but comfortable apartment, drove a reliable used car, and avoided debt. Her expenses were low, and her lifestyle was simple. Because she needed so little to sustain her life, she had the freedom to choose when and how she worked. She didn't feel trapped by financial obligations, she felt in control. The key difference between Daniel and Lisa wasn't their income, it was how much they needed to maintain their lifestyles. Financial freedom isn't about hitting a specific income level. It's about creating a situation where money is no longer a constant concern. The best way to achieve this is by designing a minimalist money blueprint that focuses on simplicity, efficiency, and financial autonomy. One of the most effective strategies for reducing financial dependence is automating savings and investments. Many people struggle to save because they rely on willpower. But by setting up automatic transfers into savings and investment accounts, the process becomes effortless. The goal is to make wealth building a default habit rather than a conscious decision. Another powerful principle is avoiding lifestyle creep. Most people increase their spending every time their income rises. They justify larger homes, newer cars, and more expensive habits because they assume higher earnings will always support them. But this cycle keeps them trapped in financial dependence. The easiest way to create freedom is by keeping expenses low even as income increases. The less money you need, the more flexibility you gain. Debt reduction is another cornerstone of financial minimalism. Many people assume that debt is a normal part of life, but every loan and credit obligation is a chain that limits choices. Paying off high-interest debt as quickly as possible eliminates financial stress and allows for greater flexibility. The fewer financial obligations you have, the easier it becomes to make decisions based on what you want, not just what you can afford. Minimalist money management also means focusing on essential expenses rather than unnecessary luxuries. This doesn't mean living frugally or sacrificing happiness. It means being intentional about spending. Instead of buying things for status or impulse, every purchase should align with long-term values and priorities. When money is spent deliberately, it adds to freedom rather than taking away from it. The simplest way to apply these principles is to track and optimize spending. Many people avoid looking at their expenses because they fear what they'll find, but awareness is the first step to control. Identifying wasteful spending and redirecting those funds toward investments or savings accelerates financial independence. Even small adjustments can create massive changes over time. The biggest misconception about financial success is that it requires constant growth. But more money isn't the answer if expenses rise just as fast. True financial independence happens when you need so little that work becomes optional. The people who achieve this don't always have the highest incomes. They have the most control over their financial lives. At the core of financial freedom is a simple truth: the less you need, the freer you become. Designing a minimalist money blueprint isn't about deprivation, it's about removing financial clutter so that life is built around what truly matters. The ultimate goal isn't just to accumulate wealth, it's to create a system where money serves you, not the other way around. Take care and be well.